Hello and welcome to the Trish Rock Inspires podcast, where we explore spirituality, intuition, and life so that you can learn a different and greater perspective on who you are, why you are here, and find more meaning and purpose in your life. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. But now, sit back and enjoy this episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Trish Rock Inspires. And today we've got the amazing Janelle Manton with us. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, Janelle assists people in creating positive, mindful habits that enhance their mental well-being. And she has an amazing podcast as well, which we're going to talk about, which is really empowering women in their 50s. Janelle's goal is to inspire you towards a better quality inner and outer life in all ways by giving you an outlet to explore who you really are and grow in some way because of it. So there's lots of other things that you do as well. But I have known you. We've been connected on socials for a long time now.
A very long time. Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. It's
And
been years and years.
I know, and both of us have evolved in so many exciting, wonderful ways. But the one thing that I always notice about you is that, you always, no matter what, you always bounce back in a really empowered, inspiring way. So we'll talk a little bit about that today too. But tell us a little bit about your life and where you've come from.
Well, I'm like, which area or what part do we want to talk about?
Yeah.
Look, I do have a coaching background, this was probably 20 years ago, and worked through with Universal Events and the Chris Howard events. Did all my NLP training, and I've always had an interest in helping people. I started studying counseling way back then, and I didn't pursue it. I went into coaching instead and did that for about 12 years. And finally, there was, the global financial crisis and a whole bunch of things that slowed my coaching business down. And I was running Top Secret Women's business, which was daring and bold and wild and
Yeah.
so future paced. Like the things that we were doing back then were just wild. And
I remember that actually. That might have been when I
it,
first connected with you on socials, actually.
It was a crazy time. It was really, there was no holes barred, and I mean that. Like it was crazy things. Like we were having intimate art lessons on, like secret lessons on sexual things. Like it was, and all above board and for very beautiful reasons. But I went
Mm,
into vet sector, so vocational training, and been training for about 12 years. And part of that has been upskilling as well. And I've got a graduate certificate in career counseling and also a Cert 3 in personal empowerment. So just adding some more tools to the belt, and recently changed companies after 6 years, and had this horrible and quite traumatic. I smile about it now, but it was really quite traumatic experience with a work situation, some very, very unprofessional people. And it really, it was like a Mack truck experience. And that led to me actually going to a dark place for a little while. Yeah, I had to pull out all my tool belt for that.
yeah, that was a hard time for you. I saw some of the post. You could really just see the sadness around it all because that's not the environment that you would ever deliberately create or be in, and so to be in that. But it has had that rubber band effect for you though, hasn't it? So you really got
Absolutely.
pulled back, and now you're just streaming forward again and studying and in a much more positive place now.
More definitely, most definitely. I actually love that analogy. I've never really thought of it that way because that stretching and that pulling part hurts like hell. It's hard.
Yeah.
Um and with all the training and even the experience that I have, I struggled to pull myself out of that
Yeah.
dark place, and I wasn't getting jobs that I'd applied for, which I would normally. And I must have had "Don't hire me. I don't really want this job anymore" written
Yeah.
across my forehead. I was scratching my head thinking, what's going on? I actually did seek professional assistance. I did see a psychologist because the
Mm,
problem was too big for me to handle.
yeah.
I feel like, my finances were struggling, my emotions were struggling, my hormones were struggling,
Yeah.
my energy levels were down. I'd really take it, and I felt very betrayed by these people in a
Yeah.
really nasty way.
Yeah.
So there was a fair bit of healing around that, that had to
Yeah.
take place before I got where I am now. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that was I had like a pretty heartbreaking betrayal in my early 50s too, which was really interesting, which has taken me on a bit of a journey. So let's talk about that because that's one of the themes of your amazing podcast is of how women in their 50s are really dealing with all of this stuff, all of the um, trauma that might come up or the unexpected kind of stuff that comes up, like what you went through was unexpected.
Mm.
And, plus you've got all your hormones and body changes and situation changes, environment changes, everything on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you kind of found? I mean, obviously, you've just said, when you went and sought the help that you needed, and I think
Yeah.
that's really important because a lot of women, like we're so independent, we're like, I'm just going to do it alone, or I'm too embarrassed to tell anyone about this, or if I get help, it'll mean I'm weak. But what do you say to women who are finding it hard in their 50s?
Most definitely get help. If you're by yourself and single, there's an assumption too that you're the strong one. You've made it this far, and something my mum said when I was at Christmas time because I got laid off a couple of days before Christmas, and mum and I was crying and just as I was about to leave mum on my way home, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do, and because I didn't have a lot of finances and a lot of time to survive without, income. So mum said, "Oh, Nellie, you're the strong one. You've always worked it out." And I was really taken aback by that because in this moment, I did not feel strong at all. And I had this epiphany, this like moment. I'm like, you know what? Therein lies part of the problem that I have, or that I have with my family, even is, you all think that I'm the strong one. So you never ask me if I'm okay. And I suffer in silence, or I'm so used to helping myself that I just get up and help myself. And look, I will admit that and I think this is a good thing, but probably not to the extent that I allowed it. But I think it's a good idea to have a pity party, like allow yourself to feel the feels
Yeah,
because they're there for a reason. Yeah, like you were suggesting in another conversation that we've had is use your intuition. If you're feeling something, just feel it. I think the difference is how long you choose to stay in that feeling for. Um,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely,
yeah,
definitely feel it, but don't stay there.
that's right. And I think that's the difference between having a depressive moment, like feeling depressed, in this moment or at this time,
Yeah,
to, being depressed and I don't believe, well, very few people are actually depressed unless you've got a chemical reason for that. But
yeah.
you can have a depressive moment. And so I would never label myself as being depressed, but I was definitely having moments where I didn't want to get up and face the world, and I was eating chocolate every day, and you know, um, but then something clicked because I'm reliant on me
Yeah,
and to have this roof over my head, and so is my son, and we've got a housemate, and and I value quality of life too. So, that survival mechanism kind of kicks in and it's like, okay, now I need to really get some help.
Yeah. It's interesting with the just going back to the depressive kind of energy. Often just see it as the opposite of being impressed with life. So if you're not impressed with life, you
Mm.
can be depressed with life sometimes.
Yeah.
You can just stay there for just as long as you need to start coming back to the joy of life again.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
That's a
look,
really good point too, because there's
yeah,
such an increase in mental health issues that the world is in a very weird place and there's a lot to not be impressed about.
absolutely.
So so the increase in depression or depressiveness, if that's
Yeah,
even a word, that actually really makes sense. So the
yeah,
key to all of this would be, and what I would like to promote is, staying on top of that
yeah,
and not letting it take a hold of you and become who you are, because there's lots of tools and within a day, a moment, a phone call, the blink of an eye, a conversation, a chance meeting,
yeah.
the world can change, your life can change. And I firmly believe that we have to maintain faith in that happening.
Absolutely, and that's taking things day by day, isn't it? And I think you're talking about, how we're, especially if we are kind of independent or and single, people see us as, oh, you can solve all your problems, you don't need any help, and it is hard to reach out sometimes, but to take it a day at a time and not get caught up in the 20 steps ahead because we don't know what's going to happen this afternoon, let alone next week, next year. It's just like, what can I do now to feel better? You know what? My whole life just crumbled before me. What can I do now to feel better? Even if it's go to sleep or
Yeah.
have a bath or have a walk or do nothing, go watch Netflix for 5 hours and be okay with it. Like
Yeah.
whatever you need to do in that moment. But yeah, just don't, keep it going for too long.
That's right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And
I
ask for help.
Most
Mm,
definitely. I found it's important to have a daily routine as well, because I was having sporadic work and was not reliable. I had some contract work and then two casual jobs that I was kind of juggling, and none of it was enough. And it was important to every day continue to apply for jobs. Like, I had to force myself to keep looking. And the strange thing was I was applying for jobs that I didn't really want, but I knew I needed to keep applying to keep faith in, like, I'm still doing something every day to move forward.
yeah.
And I did a lot of
Taking those
journaling.
actions, taking the action.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, even if it hurts to get up and do it,
Yeah.
make my bed every day, like, make my bed every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I journaled and made sure that before I get out of bed, put my feet on the ground, what am I going to be grateful for today?
Yeah.
What would I like to create for myself? So just making sure that my mindset didn't fall into, oh, another day of nobody wants me, or, oh, nobody likes me.
Exactly.
I think I'll go eat worms. Um,
Yeah.
so
But some of
yeah,
those smaller things make a big difference. The way you wake up in the morning, right? It makes a big difference. And making your bed, I feel, is really important.
yeah. The
Yeah. And
one
you can decide how the day goes from the first 5 minutes of it. Like you get to
most
decide.
Most definitely. The one
Yeah.
thing that I have, that keeps me going, and I even have it tattooed on the back of my neck,
Mm,
is faith.
yeah.
And that's not a particular faith in, it might be faith in the universe or God or spirit, whatever that means to anyone else. Faith is faith. But for me, it's just having faith that everything will work out. And
Yes.
because it always has. Like, I'm 54 years old.
Yeah.
I've turned out okay. It's worked out all right so far. Nothing has
Yeah.
really knocked me down. I'm still walking. And even if I wasn't, I'd still be here. So
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the thing when we're in the moment, when we're in the muck, when we're in the mud, we can't. It's difficult sometimes to have that faith, but when you look back over your life, you're like, I've been in the mud before and I always got out. So to have that faith, everything's going to be okay. Do you think that is something that is more um, uh, not noticeable, but more apparent in our 50s? Do you think that becomes a little bit more, what's the word? Not believable, but stronger, like a stronger faith?
I do, and I think that would be through lived experience. Like we've been knocked down, we've got up again probably multiple times in different ways in different areas of life. And I think when you get to an older age, you just get used to the safety and knowing that, a knockdown or a challenge isn't necessarily that either, because you eventually we can see, and this my situation, I can see that that was essential for me to have that experience, because that pullback and that rubber band effect, the decisions I made would not have happened if I hadn't been forced into such, like, from a dark experience,
Yeah,
forced into making like a pretty diamond decision, to go to
yeah,
uni. And I'm calling it my last quarter career, where 54, I'm future proofing myself with uni.
yeah,
I'll be 57, 58 when I finish. I figure I've got another 10, 15 years working. And this is and I really honestly I'd love to, I want all women of this age to really start thinking like this. Like, let's stop relying on other things, but what is going to be my last quarter career? How do I want to
mm,
maintain usefulness in my older age? What kind of work can I maintain in my older age that's not going to be physically, draining, but mentally stimulating,
mm,
soulful and heartful and,
yeah,
fulfilling for, I don't know. I would like to think that at the end of the day, I'm going to leave a legacy of giving back, and
yeah.
this career choice is going to help me do that. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I think that is something that women are thinking about in their 50s. Some earlier, but sometimes it's when you get to your 50s, even late 50s, like, oh, okay, well, I've still got another, 20, 30 years to live. What am I going to do? So, but your conversations and your work with women in the 50s, like, it's really important for people to have for women that you work with to have that financial independence, whether they're married or not. Yeah, yeah,
most definitely.
mm,
Yeah. Because, you might think that you've got the high paying job, but it can be taken away in a moment. And unless you've got months of cash stored to transition into another career or another role, which takes weeks. If you're looking for a government job these days, it takes about 8 to 9 weeks for them,
yes,
for the selection process to go through. So, that's a long time to have, to keep yourself afloat. So most definitely
exactly.
having a passive income,
Mm.
and it's not always passive. Like, passive implies you don't have to do anything, but but having a secondary business, there's a lot of social businesses. I think they used to call them multi-level marketing, but they call them social marketing businesses now,
Yeah,
which have beautiful product ranges that support women in business. I'm a huge advocate for those businesses because
yeah,
I see how they help, turning your passion into profit. If you've got a skill, a craft, um, a modality, how can you transform that into a small business or a product or a way? But yeah, I think it's really important that we start exploring multiple ways of making income.
of bringing income in, yeah, and
Absolutely.
everybody has some type of talent, and I think often I know this with the people I work with. Sometimes they are that 20 steps ahead, and they think, oh, but if I'm going to do something, it needs to earn thousands and thousands. And I'm like, well, what if it just earned you a couple of $100s a week, and then you did something else that also earned you a couple of $100s a week, and you did because all those little bits all add up as well. And I think we can put aside something that we're really good at because we overthink it.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. Isn't that something that you realize when you turn 50? It's like, I look at some of the people out there doing things that I was doing 10 years ago, and I scratch my head and think, well, wonder what would have happened if I didn't stop, or if I had transitioned where I would be. Sometimes, I think I was before my time in a lot of areas, and you too, Trish.
Yeah, yeah,
And we've made it this far. But the message,
exactly.
moving forward, the message I would like, and especially with Uncensored Conversations and my podcast, is interviewing people like yourself, um, and really keeping alive like the practical strategies that we can use to keep our world functioning well, keep our communities healthy, happy, keep our families thriving, and keep our personal selves in check and growing, because there's not a lot of room for stagnation, I don't think, these days.
No, and this podcast, this particular series, this is series 6, is called Sparking Your Spirit. And I called it that because while I'm going to be having a lot of spiritually based people here doing interviews, there are many other ways to be sparking your spirit in your life. And it's really doing what you love, feeling joyful about it, and following your heart. And I know that you've said that a few times today, that do something that's heartful, soulful, and something that does spark that joy within.
Absolutely. And it
Definitely.
doesn't have to be grandiose either. It doesn't have to be
No,
launching a podcast or writing a book, or I mean,
no.
I love that we've done that, and that's what sparks joy. It could be
Yeah,
crocheting a blanket for your grandchild, or taking up
exactly.
pottery, or painting a picture, or writing a story, or anything that sparks your
Anything.
joy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it's
Growing veggies, planting some flowers, that all sparks joy.
most definitely, most
Now,
definitely.
you're doing a series on your podcast calling the 50 Plus Survival Guides series, and it's going to be fabulous. And that's a really great way for women in their 50s to listen to what other women are going through, because I feel like other women, like you and I, who are very independent, sometimes will, when you hear somebody else talking about what you're going through, you're more likely to kind of go, oh, okay, maybe I will get help for it. I'm not the only one. And so it's really going to connect people. So what's your podcast called, and what's your mission for this new series?
Yeah, my podcast is Uncensored Conversations with Janelle Manton, and there's a couple
Beautiful.
of different series on there. There's an adoption series on there, so for anyone who is adopted, or has a relationship with that, or for anyone who actually feels abandonment or rejected, or have a reason for feeling that series is actually really heartwarming. It's my personal story. There's an Empowered Me series, which is lots of tips and
Mm,
tricks and life hacks for empowering yourself, overcoming
beautiful.
trauma, solution focused therapy, and different things like that. And
Hmm.
that'll be growing as the series grows. And this new series, Thriving in Your 50's, is all about, and it's especially for women, but it could be for men too. But I will be covering women's stories and how they've overcome particular challenges, like yourself, Trish. Overcoming, like getting up and over again after relationships and different things, and what to do
Mm,
about it. Most
yeah,
important thing is that what to do about it. I want people to go
yeah.
away with some, not advice, but this is what worked for me, and I'm sharing my story. And really, it's uncensored because I don't want to well, first of all, I don't edit. Like, if there's a truck going by, who cares? Get
Yeah.
over it. So it's uncensored in that way, but it's also uncensored in the way that I'm not going to edit the content. I want to be real and raw and have those really juicy
Yeah.
conversations and normalize the things that people find difficult to talk about. And,
Yeah.
moving forward and tackling challenges that we have in our 50s is one of them.
I think normalizing them is a good word, because it's all been hush hush for so long, and just get on with it and stop complaining and all the rest of it. But if you can just normalize it, because we do go through a lot in our 50s, and you don't, you and I don't want people to suffer alone.
Mm-mm.
So just to listen to other stories often helps, even. Because when
Yeah.
you're not alone, and you're not the only one going through it, that even helps.
Yes,
So,
most definitely.
mm,
So yeah, just to finish up, I would suggest talking to a friend. If
yeah,
that's not what you need, talk to your doctor,
yeah.
talk to a counselor. Certainly see Trish Rock for a session so you can get some clarity and some beautiful insights and transformation. But
Yeah,
reach out, because there are lots and lots of ways that you can move forward. And very lastly, never ever give up on yourself, because life can change in the blink of an eye.
absolutely. And people can find you on socials. Yeah.
Absolutely. I am Mama J, Mama J Bomb on Instagram. That's Mama J underscore bomb on
Yep.
Instagram, and Janelle Manton on Facebook. And
Great.
I do have a website which is under repair at the moment, but which
Hmm.
easy to find. It's just janellemanton.com or .au. So either one will get you there.
Yeah, and I'll have the link for your podcast as well in the description. But if people follow you on socials, they will hear all about it. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for coming on. It's been really fun and joyful, and I know that it's going to help a lot of people.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time, Trish.
Thank you. And thanks, everybody. See you for the next episode.